Hey everyone, my name is Ming Wu and I'm the head of sales at CanAm. Today with me is CanAm's General Counsel, Mr. Walter Ginding. Walter and his team are behind the glorious 15 I-956F approvals we have received so far under the new IRA. So I cannot think of a better person to discuss some of the most asked questions our investors have about the I-956F petition.
So, as been mentioned, I'm CanAm's General Counsel. I've been with CanAm since November of 2014. So, quite a long time.
That's more than 11 years.
More than 11 years. Seen, seen a lot, experienced a lot of our projects, a lot of successes as part of the company. So it's been very, very fruitful. I head up our legal department. We have two folks that work with us, Ryan Brown, who's our Associate General Counsel, and Marie Dalton, who I'm sure many of our viewers know. She heads up our investment due diligence department. And so we on the sort of USCIS side, we help put together the I-956F applications, the 526Es, the 829s. We work with investors and attorneys to make sure that they have all the information and documentation they need to get our investors through the immigration process. And in addition to that, we also work on loan documents, offering documents as well, and we work with outside counsel as needed. So we're a busy department. So the I-956F is an application for approval of an investment in a new commercial enterprise. It's basically what we call a project application, right? And it is the successor to the old 924 applications that existed before the RAA was implemented. So the I-956F was sort of introduced by the RIA. It's in section 203(b)(5)(f), which is why it's called the I-956F. And it is a robust, fulsome application that you have to submit to USCIS, the regional centers and projects have to submit, to get the project itself that the investors are investing in, to get that project approved. And regional centers have to file the F and receive confirmation of the filing and receipt from USCIS before investors can start submitting their petitions.
Right, so that's actually the first myth, is the regional center have to file the F and receive a confirmation from USCIS.
Correct.
Then investor can file their I-526E petition.
Correct.
A regional center, we don't need to wait until the F's approval for an investor to proceed with their personal filing.
Yes, that's right. So F has to be received by USCIS, not actually approved before investors can start filing. More often than not, we have a receipt notice in hand relatively quickly, but because there could be some delays, as everyone may have knows, that several years ago there was this lawsuit and the settlement was introduced that basically allows you to receive alternate proof of filing if the receipt notice is delayed, for example.
Yeah.
So the I-956F has to be filed, and then investors can file, but before an investor's I-526 can be approved, the I-956F has to be approved. Right, so approval, filing.
Right, yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
We know that the 956F is hundreds of pages. It's a very comprehensive filing package for the project. But can you help us break down, what are the main list of documents in the I-956 filing?
Of course. So the broad categories of documents are actually written right into the statute. The main pieces, of course, are the comprehensive business plan, the business plan that describes the entire project and investment. So that's one piece. And the business plan, well, often than not, and ours do, has exhibits to it. So you have the business plan and you have exhibits to the business plan, which we can go into. Then you have the job study, the economic impact analysis that you need to submit with the I-56F. Then there's the offering documentation, which in and of themselves are hundreds of pages that you have to submit. There's usually a separate, or along with the economic impact analysis, the T8 letter that you need to submit, whether for a rural project or a high unemployment project and so on. You have to also submit any SEC filings that are made in connection. So for all of our offerings, for example, we file a Form D for raises within the United States. So we have to submit the Form D. It has to be accepted by the SEC, and then we submit proof of that. We also submit escrow and administrative agent documentation as well. So we have an admin that helps us and monitors all of the sort of the flow of funds that is required under the program. So it's quite a robust application. The business plan, the job study, and the offering documents are really the big pieces of it that are critical for USCIS.
Yeah. There's a list of documents, as you described, that we have to prepare. But can you also share with us a little bit more when USCIS looking into this document, such as the business plan, the job study, what are the key aspects they look to, I guess, scrutinize to decide if this project meets the new IRA requirement or not?
Sure. So on the business plan side, what's interesting is that the fundamental requirements of what USCIS looks for post-RA and pre-RA haven't really changed that much. They still, and we've received notices, and they still ask for want the business plan to be what's called matter of whole compliant, right? It has to be comprehensive, it has to be credible. The credibility of the business plan is critical. And that is project specific in a lot of regards, right? So every project that puts out is different, and everyone who puts together a business plan needs to know what are the key features and components of that particular project that we must document and prove to USCIS to show that it's more than likely that it's going to go forward, right? That it's not just some you're not going out on a whim or you're hoping that the project will go forward, but the project will actually start. Whether or not it's successful, we don't know, but at the very beginning, you have to prove that there's enough pieces in place to make this project successful. So what is USCIS, in our experience, what are critical components for us when we put it together? One, fundamentally capital stack, right? When you're putting together a business plan for a deal and there's a capital stack and maybe EB-5 is a piece of it, maybe there's a senior loan, there's equity, or maybe there's some sort of government financing, you have to show that the pieces are either there, ideally, at the time that you're submitting it. So when USCIS opens that application, they're like, okay, so at least you have the financing in place or commitments in place to do the project. If those commitments aren't in place at the time of filing, which tends to happen, it's very important to have a reasonable plan and a relatively short time period to get those in place. Because what will often happen is if the financing is not in place at the time you file, US will issue maybe an RFE, maybe they'll issue a NOID if they have less patience, and want to give time, and they will ask for it. Is it in place? So if it's not in place at the time of filing, critically important, there's a plan that you're not going to be waiting a year or 2 years, because that inquiry from USCIS can come real quick, and if you can't respond to it, there's going to be an issue. So financing is critical. Also, they want to understand that the budget and the schedule are reasonable, right? That the budget and the schedule will tie into the jobs, right, and the economic impact analysis, which I'll get to. They want to understand that is reasonable. That the cost to build and the time to build it in is something that's reasonable. So a lot of the times, we work with our development sponsor or who also works with their general contractor to provide not only the budget and the schedule, that's the basis for it, but also to provide some sort of a letter or some other representation to say, we believe that in our estimate at this time, the budget and the schedule are reasonable. That's really, really important. Permits are very important, because if you want to show that you have the approvals, governmental approvals, local, whatever is required to actually commence to start work. If you can't do that, USCIS will typically ask for it. So that's very important. They also we describe the sponsorship, the expertise behind a project that goes into our offering it into all of our business plans, because USCIS also wants to see that the people that, we're a regional center, we're a lender, we're not a developer, but they want to see that there's expertise behind the project that is going to see it through. So on the business plan side, those are sort of some of the big features that are important that we try to address in every one of our applications. And then of course, in the job study, those rules have changed quite a bit since the RA was enacted. There's a certain ways that you can calculate jobs. So we want to make sure that we are, depending on the budget and depending on the schedule, that we are, the analysis itself is consistent with what's required on the RIA. So USCIS will still focuses on the credibility of the business plan and focuses on also the credibility of the economic impact analysis.
Right, yeah. And I can feel your team, the work that you do is getting more conservative. That's why when a lot of our investors ask us is why it takes so long for CanAm's project package to be ready. That's what we try to explain to them, is we try to show USCIS how ready the project is. Yeah. And we don't want to put any project on the market or file the petition to USCIS unless you feel comfortable that every element of the project are almost ready at least.
Exactly. Yeah. That's 100%. And the benefit, or I think what gives us a little bit of an advantage, or maybe not advantage, but what the benefit to me is that, I'm not a business plan writer by trade, and there are other business plan writers in the EB-5 industry that do a fantastic job. But I think one of the things that sort of that we benefit from is that when we write these plans, because we are working with our project development department from the very beginning we truly understand what this project is all about from the beginning all the way until we file the F. So we're able to put together an application that speaks to that particular project, right? Because we start from scratch and then we take it all the way forward. And yes, we try to make sure that we cover, in our experience, in my experience, having done this for almost 12 years and seen adjudications, we have a decent sense of what USCIS will want to see. And of course, our primary goal is to get that approval without an RFE, without a NOID, and we want to give them the most comprehensive, credible application, because that is how we interact with the agency, right? We don't want to hide anything. We want to be transparent, and if something's not available, we explain why, but we also explain, we try to be very forthright. And the way that they see that we're forthright, and hopefully that they see it, and they've been, we've been successful in that regard in getting these approvals, is by giving them the information that they need to actually approve, and being fully transparent and comprehensive. So if it takes a little bit longer, there's a reason to it.
It's worth the wait.
It's worth the wait for sure.
I also just want to pass on a compliment that we often receive from the Immigration Council that we work with. They represent these investors. They always tell us that whenever they receive the project filing package from CanAm, they know the package so well put together, it's so organized. And I think that's all because you and your team's hard work at CanAm. Yeah,
thank you. It's been, we try to be consistent with our partners, our attorney partners, our investors, with USCIS to show that, look, we're giving you a consistent product. You know exactly where you're going to find it. It's organized in the same, more or less the same way each time, so that you can sort of, if you're looking for an answer, hopefully you'll be able to find it in the exact place that it was last time for a new deal. So yeah, thank you.
There has been data showing an increased percentage of projects that's been denied under the new IRA. I think if I remember correctly, the IUS data actually shows up to 25% of these projects has been denied. Right, that's quite concerning. Can you share with us what are the key reasons you think these denials are, and how CanAm navigate or avoid these pitfalls?
Yeah, I haven't personally seen some of the denials, but just sort of anecdotally, I think certainly if there are pieces of the application that are, for example, missing, if like we mentioned, the capital stack, or maybe there's questions regarding the budget or the schedule that regional centers might not be able to answer in the time that USCIS affords them. It's also possible that there are some financing structures that are perhaps more unique than what USCIS is used to, in terms of how the money goes in, when it goes in, how it's raised, and what the interaction is between the NCE and the JCE. I think we try to, like you mentioned, we don't really, we don't try to reinvent the wheel, right? And so even though we have a variety of different types of projects, not everything is real estate, right? We have broadband, and we have all these, we have gas exploration, and all these different types of projects. The asset classes change, but fundamentally the way that we deploy that capital as a loan with a term, with paying, covering expenses going forward, and we don't really harp on bridge financing issues all the time. Right. So we try to make it sort of, we know what works within EB-5 after all of these years, and I'd have to, as early on, we had to go through, when Tom and Christine first started, there's all this pushback, but we've, over the 30 years of CanAm's history, we sort of know and understand what works for EB-5. Right. And so we try to stick within that box, even as projects change, right? Yeah. So, and that's been consistent both in our applications and our project development meetings and underwriting and how we source deals. It's really been with, we don't want to be the regional center that starts something new. We want to continue what has been working. Right.
The early days, the try and error days are over. Let's put it that way. Yeah. Right.
And also just to add, I mean, we don't do it all ourselves, right? If there's expertise that we need, or second or third opinions, we have good relationships with very experienced EB-5 attorneys, very experienced corporate attorneys that help us sort of understand structure and put things together that collectively, as we can be confident will be successful.
We just received our 15th I-956 approval, right? That's for a very high-profile project, the Four Seasons in Telluride. We have, over the years, we have seen the approval time for the project actually been very decent, very encouraging. Yes. I would say most of our project is approved within 4 to 9 months, right? I know this is a completely, speculating questions. Do you see the trend to continue?
I think so. I think that, especially for rural projects, the Four Seasons was a rural project, right? In the RIA, it says those types of projects, they're supposed to be prioritized by USCIS. Because there's an incentive, a need to build within the rural areas that's sort of built into the RIA. And so those projects we've seen actually have been adjudicated faster than historical average, which is good. And even the high unemployment deals, I know everyone everyone doesn't remember, back in the day, it took 2 to 3 years to approve any project, rural or high unemployment. And now they're about, just from our experience, probably within that year range, which is
fantastic.
Which is not bad, all things considered. So I'm hoping it continues. I think that USCIS has shown that it has the ability and the capacity to continue these faster adjudications, and our job is to make it straightforward to them, to make them feel good about approving something, because we've given them an application that is comprehensive, that is credible, that that hopefully sort of addresses all of the questions that they have, at least at the initial stage. Yeah.